Hello and welcome to another Monday Night Football Showdown breakdown. This time, Russell Wilson and his Bible narrative going to LA to face Justin Herbert and the explosive Chargers offense. Cody, good morning.
Good morning, Adam. It's enough already with this Broncos offense. I've had enough. It's 4 weeks, four primetime games in 6 weeks. It's time to move on already.
Yeah, and they've been so bad, obviously. It's been a disappointing season for the Broncos and the Broncos offense. We'll get into that here in a second. Gary, good morning.
Good morning, Adam. Lucky for me, won't be around to watch another Broncos primetime game tonight. I'm heading to the Bronx for America's pastime, baseball that I got on a Friday night show. I know you've been watching a lot of baseball over the last couple of years.
Here we go with the baseball talk. It's dead. It's over. Just go to MMA or NASCAR or golf or something. Baseball is over, buddy. Okay. Game like this, it's interesting because I think people have interest in Broncos skill players. They have not performed at the level anyone thought that they had this season. I think people are starting to get frustrated. I've seen Russ dropped a ton in season long, which I agree with. I've seen people want to bench Jerry Jeudy a lot. Melvin Gordon's had his fumbling problems. They've essentially relegated Albert O to a 0. On the other hand, people are always excited to play, as they should, Justin Herbert stuff. And so I think you get into a spot where people are way more excited for Chargers stuff than Broncos stuff, even though the game is relatively close in spread. Cody, what do you think about this from a macro perspective?
Yeah, taking a look at the roster construction breakdown, coming into the slate, I kind of expected to see a lot more, Chargers heavy stuff. And there will be plenty of the 4-2 where we expect 4 Chargers, 2 Broncos to be flooded into lineups. But I even kind of expected a little bit more of the 5-1 stuff too. And I think the reason why we're not seeing a whole lot of that is because after that abysmal Thursday night performance last week, almost across the board, skill position pricing for the Broncos came down. I mean, we've got a $8,400 Cortland Sutton, $7K Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, if you're interested, there is $3K. It's just, as a whole, the pricing has come down on the Broncos offense. And I think as a result, it's going to force them into lineups, especially in those type of tournaments where a lot of our opponents are using optimizers. So I've got a little bit of interest because I do like this Chargers team and kind of doubling up on that 5-1 narrative there, and just kind of hoping that we don't see that offensive improvement and we see another game like we saw last week on Thursday night where the Denver offense just never gets going.
Yeah. By the way, I would be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to Max Steinberg, who solo shipped on Thursday. I've known Max for a long time from poker, and I believe he solo shipped. Cody, was that Thursday's slate? If I recall.
Yeah, there's been a couple of solo winners. I don't remember if it was that
Thursday.
Slate where
Washington Chicago had a solo winner. So if it was,
I think that's the slate that Max won. There was a solo winner on the Thursday night slate, which included the Broncos Colts game, which included 2 kickers and 2 DSTs. So it was truly an incremical.
Is there something more to these under run first games having a higher chance of a solo shipper? Because that's 2 in a row that did that.
Yeah, I mean, just the way that the builds have worked out, I think that's the case. You get those situations where, optimizers are going to be pretty unlikely to force in 4 DSTs and kickers into a lineup like that. And I think Max's team had a few unique components to it as well. So I think last night's was a unique winner too. So we might have 3 unique winners in a row, which is pretty awesome for Showdown.
That's crazy. Yeah. All right. Let's start at the quarterback position here. Russ has been bad. And I still think that they should continue to throw more than they have. I don't think Nathaniel Hackett's done a good job. I obviously live here in Denver now. If this was Philadelphia or somewhere else where they aren't as nice, they would be calling for Russell Wilson's head right now after they gave him $250 million to play like this. I mean, Russ has just straight up not been good. Gary, I don't think there's a particularly great spot for him. I think the best thing that you can say is that Chargers are going to put points on the board, and therefore hopefully Denver will be more aggressive. From an efficiency standpoint, though, I don't expect Russ to all of a sudden start clicking here in this spot. What do you think about Russ and using him tonight? We have only slightly less ownership projected total and captain right now for Herbert versus Russ. Obviously, Russ is $1,000 cheaper.
Yeah. I think Ben Solak on The Ringer explained it well with what's going on with Russ this week. And he knows that his athleticism isn't there anymore. So he's literally a zebra trying to change his stripes in the way he plays, which never, ever works out. Like I think he mentioned that his longevity, the key to his longevity would be turning into like a Drew Brees-like player, which is not what Russell Wilson is, or I don't think ever will be. So I think this contract's going to be a disaster. And I think it already is. And we'll see if it actually can, if he can figure out a way to at least, put out respectable performances. But for now, I'm not really interested. This game's in LA. I think, the Chargers are going to be extra motivated. They still do have really good personnel on defense. I would just so much rather come in well under on Russ and just lean into the Chargers heavy stuff. And maybe that's going to be my bias throughout the show here, but it's hard to get excited.
I think that's interesting. I also think that it's somewhat contrarian, right? We have 51% on Russ. I think typically, Cody, at least one quarterback is in the winning lineup, like almost always, right? And so if you're not playing Russ lineups, are you making sure you have Herbert in those lineups, Cody? And what do you think about Russ and Herbert tonight?
Yeah, I think unless you're really projecting for one of these, again, inefficient, run-heavy, low-scoring games, you most likely want to have one of these quarterbacks in both cash and in tournaments. I can kind of make the case for fading Russ in cash, just given the fact that you can soak up a lot of that passing offense if you think it is a little bit more efficient with Cortland Sutton, who is $1,600 cheaper. Mm-hmm. And generally, I'm one to almost always side with the quarterback side in cash, but I think you can kind of make a case from getting away from it there. I will say I still think he's a strong GPP flex option when paired with his pass catchers. So, if you've got a Judy captain, if you've got a Sutton captain, I still think Russ makes sense more often than not in the flex there. But as you mentioned, it's so likely that one of these quarterbacks is going to be among the top 6 scorers, which is really what you need in order to kind of walk away a winner from large and small field GPP perspective. So if you're not playing Russ, I think then you kind of have to set your sights on Justin Herbert. And the thing about tonight is, salary is not all that difficult to find on this slate. Going through kind of the ownership stuff, I think that we could see ownership get inflated on some of these guys, Justin Herbert, Mike Williams, Austin Eckler at the top of the board, just because we've got so much salary available, which is not something we usually say on charter slates. So I think that those 3 premier options on the LA side, Justin Herbert included in that, will get their ownership inflated, especially in smaller field stuff.
I will say Justin Herbert was clearly affected by the rib issue that everybody saw in that national television game. He tried to play the next week, was very, very bad. Since then, I think he's been very, very good. No Keenan Allen tonight, which I think, certainly hurts Justin Herbert in a pretty sizable way. And they've also had a bunch of offensive line injuries and offensive line poor performances, which obviously hurts. And we'll get to some of the quick hitting stuff in a minute. But I do think that Herbert is hurt by Keenan Allen not being out there. Keenan is just so good at getting open underneath. Let's go to running back. One thing about getting the ball out quick, man. I mean, Austin Eckler is on pace for something absolutely outrageous, like 120 catches or something totally insane. They've actually eased off his workload a bit. Like and he asked for it. Austin Eckler, obviously a great friend of the fantasy community. He was like, listen, I want to play a long time. I don't want the ball 30 times a game. Get me some more guys to pound in there. And they've done so. I mean, they've given Josh Kelly a bunch of work, especially around the red zone. They've given Sony Michel work at times. And so this is not a full workload for Austin Eckler. It's just an incredibly valuable workload. He scores from everywhere. He catches so many balls. And if you think that if you think Justin Herbert's going to be under pressure here and there's no Keenan Allen, the best safety valve is Eckler. And then we've seen that over and over and over again. I think a lot of people are going to view Eckler as the best raw play on this entire slate here, Gary. We have him at 65% total ownership, 16% captain. That seems pretty efficient to me. What do you think about Eckler tonight? And then, Kelly and Sony, I don't even want to start with this so bad it's good stuff. You know what? I'm not even going to say it. So let's just talk about Eckler for a second here.
Yeah, I do. I think I agree with the field here that Eckler's the best overall play on the slate and probably would be a staple of any cash game I was playing tonight. What I like about Eckler is he's kind of like a passing version of Nick Chubb, or obviously he's not as efficient on the ground, right? But what he's able to do with his limited snaps or whatever, less work than maybe we expected in going into the season through the air is just so valuable. As you mentioned, the targets remain elite, the passing game role remains elite, and I think you hit the nail on the head that he's kind of that safety valve with Keenan Allen not on the field. I think you can just lock up at least 4 or 5 catches, and then what he does with the yards after catch is up to him. And we've seen him basically go to town with it. So I have no problem being around the field in tournaments, but definitely like him, a lot for cash.
Cody, I didn't want to start down this path, but Josh Kelly and Sony Michel are so outrageously overpriced. And they're like running backs who don't Josh Kelly plays a little bit in the pass game, but don't give me this so bad it's good on this, please.
It's the problem is DraftKings was just way too aggressive in pricing them up, and it was almost like we don't know who the backup is, so we're just going to price them both up like they're the backup. And if they were 4K, 3,500 to 4K range, you can make the case for the so bad it's good. But like, man, even if Josh Kelly vultures a goal line touchdown or something like that and has an efficient rushing game, and I don't know, has 8 carries for 40 yards and a touchdown, like that might not be enough to get there at 6,400. So I don't know, man. If he's going to be 10% owned and that holds, then I just don't see any reason to go there. I would imagine that at that price tag, he's optimal less often than 10-11% of the time. And similar situation with Sony too. I mean, you just can't go there where they're 62 and 6,400.
Yeah. Why are they so expensive? Because he's carried the ball 10 times last week. I don't get the pricing here.
Yeah, neither do I. Maybe they're just protecting against an ankle injury, but they don't normally do that in Showdown. Yeah. Anyways, on the other side, our boy, shout out team preseason, Mike Boone, clearly played very well last week. Melvin was, meh or sluggish once again. I think the difference this week is that we expect Latavius Murray to actually be active, and like maybe he won't be, or maybe Latavius won't play a lot, but we don't know, and we're projecting it. Cody, how do you think Broncos running backs shake out tonight? Obviously, the guy that catches my eye is Mike Boone. I mean, literally, if you guys have been playing preseason for 5 or 6 years, Mike Boone was like the most dominant preseason running back we've had over a multi-year span. But what do you think about Broncos running backs, Cody?
Yeah, I mean, for as bad as the Broncos offense was last week, I think there were some bright spots to take away from Mike Boone's performance. The usage profile isn't all that encouraging. I guess from like a true ceiling perspective, just handled 26% of the team's rushing attempts, was in a route for 41% of dropbacks. But I think like talent there, especially in the passing game, is going to win out. And even if Latavius Murray is active and steals a little bit more of the base down work or splits a little bit more with him and Melvin Gordon, like I still think Mike Boone is going to be out there in passing situations. And now we've got them as 4.5 point road dogs. I would imagine that Mike Boone is going to be more involved in the passing game. And, where we talk about Sony Michel and Joshua Kelly's prices coming up, like Mike Boone's dropped $1,400 from last week after we saw him on the field quite a bit and involved in passing situations. I was surprised when I ran ownership to see ownership come in around 20%, but I guess there's just options that are cheaper, and also the field being a little bit more interested, I suppose, in the kickers and DSTs. But at that price tag, like if he just beats that group of the kickers and defenses, which I think he's, maybe not a favorite to do so, but has a shot to do a realistic path to being able to do so, you could see him landing in winning lineups, and 20% ownership is reasonable, I think, for him.
Yeah, not a favorite against all of them, right? But a favorite one-on-one versus them, right? You know what I mean? Like not if you combined all 4 of the kickers' defenses, he's not a favorite to beat all of them. He's still a favorite one-on-one, I think, against much of them. And part of this is I actually don't think that my take on Latavius is that he's just, old, big, kind of like slowish. Like they don't need like another Melvin Gordon out there, So like my assumption is that it's going to be mostly Gordon and Boone. I do want to move on here, Gary, but do you have any thoughts on Latavius? Because I think that's going to be a key decision point on the slate. Latavius 1,600. Do you think he plays enough to get there or not? My take is actually no, but I'm open to other ideas on Latavius.
Well, what's the story on Melvin Gordon's health? Because I still see he's questionable. Like, is there any chance he's limited here?
Yeah, that popped up on Saturday with the neck thing. I haven't looked into it that much. I don't know, Cody. Do you think Melvin's good? Fine. My assumption was that he's fine.
Yeah, it's strange that it popped up on Saturday, but he'd been dealing with that in practice, had been limited in recent weeks as well. I assume fine, but the thing is, like, they gave Devine Ezigbo a couple of carries, and he was in the game a little bit last week. My take is that like Latavius is just going to steal what little work Devine Ezigbo had last week. I don't think he's going to mix in a ton. We have 3.2% projected ownership, so of course there at 1,600 he should be in your large field player pool, but I just don't think like Latavius is here to carve out any sort of meaningful role.
Yeah, it does not surprise me at all that Melvin Gordon only 13%. That would be like the contrarian one, I feel like, Gary, for the GPP bros, where you get the starting running back at 31%.
Yeah, exactly. I was looking at that and I'm like, I want to play Melvin Gordon here, but there's enough like question marks, with the Latavius likely being active, and then obviously Mike Boone kind of passing the eye test over Gordon. Gordon's been inefficient in each of his last 3 games. I mean, we're looking at pretty much two or 3 yards of carry at most here. I still think he's a good player. Last year, he was really a strong runner, but if he's banged up at all, plus Boone has the favor of the coaching staff, it's hard for me to get so excited about Melvin. I think Latavius is like a 2% sprinkle in MME sets. Like he barely makes my pool, I think.
And Jason's point, I mean, Chargers teams, people were like, oh, they're much better than they were last year. And people remember last year, they were like purposefully letting teams run on them, which I thought was sharp, but it got so extreme that they like couldn't win. I mean, they were like, run on us, which is smart, right? Like make the offense run. It's way less efficient than throwing, but you can't be giving up 200 yards rushing a game. No. And people this year were like, oh, well, they're way better this year. I don't know about that. I mean, maybe they're a little bit better, but they're still really bad. So I do think that a run heavier game plan makes sense. As we go to wide receiver here, start on Denver. Obviously Russ has had the shoulder stuff, and maybe that's been a limiting factor. His vision, though, has not been right. He gets locked onto the Bible narrative stuff with Cortland Sutton. You saw KJ Hamler, shout out Penn State, running wide open in their last game to score a touchdown. Russ doesn't even see him. Cortland Sutton's usage, I didn't have a strong take before the season about Sutton versus Jeudy. I thought Sutton was a little bit better, just honestly for the Bible narrative stuff, but I thought it was mostly a coin flip. Now it's clear Sutton is the better option. That's reflected in price. That's also reflected in ownership. Gary, what do you think about handling Sutton versus Jeudy? And then I would throw Hamler into the mix also there.
Yeah, I think Judy's the strong GPP play here. You get a $1,400 discount. You're going to get far less ownership, both in ownership and captain ownership, even though it's a very clear number one. Sutton has the very clear number one receiver role, right? And Cody breaks that down well in his article. He talks about all of the snap percentage, target share, all that stuff that is very clearly leaning in Sutton's way. That said, we know Jeudy has big games in his range of outcomes. He's kind of got, he's a big play receiver. Like if this game does play up, I think I want to be over the field on Jeudy here. While I want plenty of Sutton, it's hard for me to get excited about 12% captain ownership in tournaments when we have Justin Herbert, Austin Eckler, Mike Williams, even Jeudy and Palmer, who I think I would make my captain pool tonight. So I think it's a little rich for me, but I like him a lot in flex spot.
Okay. On the other side, Cody, I've probably been most disappointed with the play of Josh Palmer. I thought when Keenan Allen missed, Josh Palmer was like really good bet to produce. He has not done so, and maybe he's just not good enough. I know some people were excited about DeAndre Carter. He's so small. It's really hard, but he's going to be out there plenty. And then we know Big Mike's situation. I mean, Big Mike's a baller, man. This is not the best matchup, I don't think, for him, but Big Mike is clearly a baller. What do you think about the Chargers wide receiver stuff?
Yeah, I'm generally the last guy to overreact to wide receiver cornerback matchup stuff. So I'm sure I'm going to get punished for doing so here. But Big Mike 10-6, the matchup against Patrick Surtain. I think ESPN's Mike Clay broke it down really well, and I talked about that in the article too. Surtain has shadowed Metcalf and Devontae Adams and was trailing Brandon Ayuk for a good portion of that game as well. And then on the other side, so it's got me a little bit concerned. I know Mike Williams' usage when Keenan Allen has been out is borderline elite, but that's got me a little bit scared. And then on the other side for Joshua Palmer, he's most likely going to be running his routes against Ronald Darby, fill in Damari Mathis. And I think like if you want to just attack best possible matchup, Mike Williams is more likely to earn targets and is a better talent. But if you want to try and pick a spot where targets might finally get funneled Joshua Palmer's way, this would be the game, where it might do so. So I have quite a bit of interest in Joshua Palmer. I'm terrified to be light on Mike Williams, but if I want to go there, I just want to be paid off with a little bit of either a price discount or an ownership discount. I don't think we're going to end up getting either because we've got the salary to spend. So I think Mike Williams couldn't, be a guy that ends up getting steamed past that 49% total ownership.
One thing I'd say on Josh Palmer is that Justin Herbert elevates, right? And so like people are, Josh Palmer's not good enough. He's not good enough. He's not good enough. All it takes is like 3 or 4 really good throws from Justin Herbert, and Josh Palmer looks great, right? And Justin Herbert can certainly do that. And so this is a really big spot for Josh Palmer for a lot of reasons. I like him tonight to get dragged along by a good Justin Herbert game. Tight end, man, I blew this in the preseason. God, I was in on Alberto, didn't see it cleanly on Gerald Everett, perhaps blinded by Donald Parham love. And now we get into a spot where we can't even use Alberto. He should have been dropped in season long. I'm staring at a bunch of best ball teams with Alberto. It's just a disaster. And meanwhile, I think Gerald Everett's been very, very good. I had no idea Gerald Everett would be wearing number 7 and a dark visor. If I did, Gerald Everett would have been more on my radar. But yeah, I mean, look, Gerald Everett's role is fine. He runs a route on like 66, 67% of the dropbacks. It's not elite by any stretch. He is an athletic dude. Donald Parham is playing tonight, as will Trey McKitty, but I don't think Gerald Everett's role will be affected too much. I think he'll have his normal 67% role. On the other side, I mean, they completely iced Albert O to the point where we're projecting him for 1.8 points. I mean, if he runs 0 routes in this game, I wouldn't be shocked at all. The problem is that Seibert is just like a dad runner. Hard to get excited about him. Gary, what do you think about all this tight end stuff tonight? At least we can say that the guys other than Everett are cheap.
Yeah, it's Everett for me, and then I guess you just throw in some of these punt guys, right? I mean, Parham's back in the mix with a projection. You got to like that.
Yeah.
It's hard. Yeah, Alberto. It's sad, man. Maybe next year, when Hackett's a one and done, and the new coaching staff will be into Alberto. But yeah, I'm not super excited about any of these guys, but I think they're fine kind of filler stuff if you need the 2,000 or less salary. I mean, starting with Seibert is how you say it there? I guess just because he has the role. And so if you want kind of a second or tertiary Denver receiver, if you want to go all out in a 4-2, 5-1 Denver, I think he fits into that type of build.
Yeah, and Greg, we haven't heard anything on Greg Dulcich, right? I don't think we know if he's even activated for tonight's game yet or not, right? And even if he is, he's been out for so long. He missed like all of training camp. I'd be shocked if he had a real role in his first game. But any thoughts there, Cody? Anything else on tight end?
Yeah, you nailed it on Dulcich. I actually expect him to be active, but I was reading last night when doing the write-up, and it sounds like his role will be, very limited in his first game back in his NFL debut. So, if there's any reason to make a case for even getting underweight the 6.6% projected ownership on Alberto, Dulcich might be back, and Alberto could be truly iced. I will touch on Seibert. The price tag is cheap enough that even a dad runner like him, if he's going to be out there for as much as he is, had a pretty strong target share in last week's game, didn't even find the end zone and kind of got there in terms of the box score results. 2,000, he's going to be out there for 2/3 of Russell Wilson's dropbacks. I don't hate that at all if you really need the salary relief.
Okay. Defense and kicker here. People will be far less excited to play defense and kicker here versus what they were on that Bears Washington Commanders slate. Cody, I give you our weekly platform for you to discuss defense and kicker strategy on Showdown. What a throw.
Yeah, I think Russell Wilson's shortcomings were so public and so glaring last week that the Chargers DST could get steamed up a little bit. You can also kind of throw in the narrative that Russ will be playing without Garrett Bowles, might also be without left tackle, I believe. So you could talk yourselves into that Chargers DST getting steamed up quite a bit in tournaments, but that might be right. Honestly, in kind of the weekly or tri-weekly announcement that Dustin Hopkins and Brandon McManus are firmly in play regardless of your projected outcome. They're going to be involved, and as we kind of talked about throughout the show, they just need to beat the skill position players that they're priced around. You don't even need the ceiling performances that we've seen from kickers in slates past. If you get your 9, 10, 11, 12 points from them, that might be enough. I generally like to lean with the kicker that's kicking for the team with the higher implied total. That would be Dustin Hopkins in this case. So if forced to choose only one, it would be Hopkins for me. But I think, looking at our optimals before hopping on the show for cash, I think you probably want to play both kickers in cash tonight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I prefer McManus just because I know how often the Broncos will get stopped before the red zone fair. And Russell Wilson's inefficiency. And so, there you go.
All right, we can take a couple of questions here if you guys have any before we get to the planting of the flags. Sterling notes that Hackett has talked about Latavius Murray a lot in the past week or so. That's fine. We'll see. Charlie is really adamant that it's Latavius season.
Maybe it is. And maybe, the Melvin injury popping up late, maybe they limit him a little bit and Latavius is more involved than we thought. I think that's honestly possible.
Yeah, it's possible.
Keep an eye on the news. I mean, it's 12 o'clock right now. We got a bunch of hours until this game. Like we might get some more information there.
Yeah. Russ and Seibert or Sutton and McManus for cash? That's an interesting question. I normally lean towards quarterbacks pretty hard in cash. Cody, any thoughts there?
Yeah, I do too. Whenever I can. I think for this one, and I was just looking at our top optimal before hopping on. I think our top optimal is what I would run in cash, and that has the Sutton McManus side.
Okay. Yeah, Chargers defense to quote unquote wake up. Yeah, I could see Russ having a really bad game for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you could have made an argument that Denver's had a wake up narrative though for 5 weeks now. So
yeah, zero RB night. We talked about this at the top. It's rare. I mean, Cody might know exactly how rare, but it's rare for at least one quarterback not to be in the optimal. I don't know exactly how rare, Cody, but I'd be surprised if a quarterback wasn't in the optimal like 95+% of the time.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I look at top 1% rates, which you can look at top 0.01%. You can look at the straight optimal. I like getting a larger sample, but out of the top 1% winning lineups dating back to 2020, it's like 95%. So it's rare, but it'll happen.
Cody, what do you think about playing Boone and Melvin together?
Yeah, I think it's okay. I'm going to put a negative boost on Boone when Melvin Gordon is in the lineup and vice versa, which just means I'll be reducing Mike Boone's projection when Melvin Gordon is rostered, but I'm not going to completely rule it out. I think the price tags are fine that they can both get there.
All right. We said it all. Let's go to the flagging of the plant, the planting of the flag portion of the program. Cody, I'll give you the floor if you're ready.
Yeah, I got to get this guy. I'm going to take him from Gary because I think this is where Gary was headed. So good luck finding another one, buddy. I'm going with Jerry Jeudy tonight. I think he is premier leverage off of Cortland Sutton. I think ownership could get squeezed even more in some of the smaller field stuff that I'm playing. Yeah, I mean, Cortland Sutton is definitely the wide receiver one in Denver. We seem to get another sample of that each time they take the field together, but that doesn't mean Jerry Jeudy can't out-target him or outscore him in a single game. And we've seen it in week 1 where he went 4-102-1. I think we could see another one of those type of performances as the Chargers defense focuses on Cortland Sutton a little bit more in this matchup. So I like Jerry Jeudy to be the optimal captain tonight at 7K.
All right, Jerry Jeudy. Gary, go ahead.
Yeah, no, he would have been a consideration for me, but as I've been hating on the Broncos all game, I was never going to flag the Denver guy tonight. I just can't do it. But I will go with the wide receiver 2 on the other side in Josh Palmer because I know, as you mentioned, Cody, I think we're as a company, we don't read into the cornerback wide receiver matchups as much. But personally, I think every year there's like 3 or 4 guys that it just week in, week out, it's the numbers start to play out that you don't like to attack this guy. And if it's just a tiebreaker, when you look at ownership and price on Mike Williams, and Pratt Surtain is that dude, I think. I just think it's enough to say this is a nice Josh Palmer spot. And I think it's a little too early to be looking into these sample sizes. Oh, Josh Palmer's a big bust without Keenan Allen. I think we have another week here to maybe prove that isn't the case. So I like Palmer tonight.
Okay. I like that one as well for sure. You guys might think that I should be flag planting team preseason, Mike Boone. Maybe. You guys might also think that I should be flag planting team XFL and the PSM, Donald Parham. Maybe. However, sometimes you need to go back to your roots where it all started. KJ Hamler at Penn State was freakishly fast, did not run at the combine because of a hamstring issue. If he had run at the combine, I legit think he would have ran in the 4.2s, maybe the low 4.3s. KJ Hamler then blew out his knee, and now he's back, baby. He's back and tilting his face off because, as I mentioned, he was wide open to the point where he threw his helmet on the ground, criticized Russ, okay? And then they didn't say, hey, don't criticize Russ. No, that wasn't it. It was, the coach speak was, we need to get KJ Hamler the ball more because KJ Hamler is open. And so at 3K, KJ Hamler, go out there and make a big play, kid. I like that a lot. Shout out Penn State. All right. That's going to do it for this Showdown Breakdown. We'll continue to have updates throughout the day as we find news for the projections. Reminder, NBA starts tomorrow. I repeat, tomorrow. If you plan on playing DFS, if you plan on betting props, if you plan on doing anything with NBA fantasy or prop related, head up to the subscribe page. You'll see all the information up here. As I scroll up, NBA, you can see our content schedule here. Subscribe, NBA products for more information there. Enjoy the game tonight. For Cody, for Gary, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.